So today we are here and we are talking about what to do if you are married to or living with or dating or whatever a super negative person. Um, so first of all, as I always say, just a little disclaimer at the beginning of this, if you are in a relationship that involves physical abuse, none of what I am saying here applies to you. If you're in a relationship with physical abuse, you need to get help from local authorities and get a plan in place. So talk to somebody who's a professional in that area. So that's my disclaimer. Now, let's get on with it. So what to do if you're with a person who is super negative. So there's a lot of different types of negativity. So first I want to talk about that. So we're going to talk about the different types of negativity that you might be dealing with in your relationship. And we're going to talk about what it means for you when you're dealing with that and some things that you can do about it. And of course, how to deal with it and keep your own vibe high, because usually that's what people are really struggling with when they're in a relationship that's uber negative, is they're struggling with how do I maintain my own happiness when I'm constantly being surrounded by somebody who, wants to complain or talk about negativity or negative stuff. So let's first talk about what it means when somebody is super negative. So one type of negativity that I often see is the complainer. So this is the person who just feels difficult to be around because they're always, always, always complaining about something. So, they're the ones who will say that the service at the restaurant was too slow, or complaining about, the kids never clean up after themselves, or there's too many shoes in this garage. Who buys all these shoes, right? So it's this constant kind of complaining, and often this person creates situations in the marriage or in the relationship where there's bickering. So this is if you're with a complainer type, and if you've been with him or her for a very long time, you've likely gotten to this place where there's a lot of back and forth bickering. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that's about and how to fix it for you. Another type of uber negativity is when people really like to express their negative opinions about other people. So this is the person who will be talking about, can you believe, what my boss said, or, saying that person is so stupid, or, really sees the negative in others and assumes that somebody's always trying to screw them over. Or, I heard someone say recently, oh, she was only crying to get attention, right? So it's this person who often will lack a lot of compassion when it comes to other people. They have a very low opinion about most other people and tend to see the worst in people. So not just see the worst in the situation at the restaurant that they're going to complain about, but they see the worst in other people and like to share that with you and want you to join in with them about, in talking with these other people or talking about these other people. So often these, if someone is that type of negative, they kind of hold a belief that all people are really calculated, or that all people are trying to trick them in some way. So of course they're always sort of watching for what people are doing or saying and trying to make sure that they can find something wrong in whatever it is. And obviously this is a way, it's a form of self-protection. It's a way to kind of lift themselves above others. There's a self-righteousness in that when we can, always find something wrong with everybody else. And it's difficult to be around because all of us have an ego and all of us have that level of self-righteousness. And when it's not in check, it gets out of hand. And that's where you're, complaining or, always talking about other people. But even if you don't see yourself that way and you don't want to talk about other people, being around somebody who does often can get you to the point of wanting to point out everything that's wrong with them, because it feels like you just want to say, stop complaining or talking about everybody else. Look at yourself in the mirror. Maybe you're not, so hot yourself. So it can kind of, in a sense, rub off on us that way. If you're with somebody and you're having to deal with kind of resisting that level of negativity all of the time. And so we're going to talk about that as well. And the third kind of negativity and sort of doom is the person who always likes to talk about negative things all the time. So often this person, and I'm sure you can think of them, this is the type of person who tends to bring the conversation down, and they like to talk about all of the horrible things that are going on in the world, all of the horrible things that are going on with their friends or other family members, and they, you know, in their defense, are often coming at this conversation, or so they think, they're coming at this conversation from a place of concern. So, you know, it's someone who's, you know, saying, oh, well, Sandy's been so sick with a cold for over a month. They probably won't be able to go on their trip to Florida, you know, or, you know, did you hear that John and Allie bought another new car? They, you know, geez, I hope they didn't get stuck with a bad interest rate, you know, just a constant sort of downer sort of person. I'm just looking at some other examples I had written here. Oh yeah, so people who would be talking about, you know, I told so-and-so that he shouldn't make that deal, but he wouldn't listen. He takes way too many risks. I really hope that it doesn't go poorly for him. And I heard someone say a few weeks ago, I like my money safe in the bank instead of investing it like he does. You know, so it's that type of thing where if you're married to this person, or if you're around this person a lot, it can get heavy if you just, you know, because that's when you want to say to them, I'm sure Matt's fine with his investment, and I'm sure that John and Allie have their car situation figured out, and I'm sure that Sandy and Bill will get to Florida if that's what's meant to be, right? But there's people who like to marinate in kind of always bringing the conversation to that place. And the truth is, and in all cases, levels of negativity, and you know, these high levels of negativity, is really about a lack of perspective about what's really happening. So anytime people are in that place of worry, sorry, I'm going to put my do not disturb on again. Anytime people are in a place of worry, what it's really about is a lack of faith or a lack of trust. Because when you understand and believe in the way that the universe works, not just understand it, but feel it and believe it and live your life based on that, you recognize that there's actually nothing to worry about. And you start to recognize that things are always working out for you, and things are always working out for everybody. And when things are working out, sometimes it seems like they're not. So if so-and-so doesn't make their trip to Florida, it's probably for the best. It's probably for their highest good. And when you start to live that way and live based on the idea that there's nothing to worry about, you know, one thing I love saying is there's nothing serious going on here. You start to step into a different level of faith. And it's that level of faith that's required in order to sort of get to that place of creating the life you really want and you really love. Because then you can just see the positivity. And the more, you know, it's like the saying goes, what you appreciate appreciates. So if you want to sit and talk about being broke, you're going to be broke. If you want to sit and talk about, you know, being careful not to get sick, you're probably going to be the person who always gets sick, okay? Instead, when you're talking about new ideas and new opportunities and all of the great things that could be happening to you, or all the great things that are happening to other people, what that shows is it's a level of vibration that you want to match. You want, you know, if someone is doing really well in business, you don't want to sit and talk about all the risks they're taking. You want to sit and talk about that from a place of inspiration, from a place of looking at it and thinking, wow, that's great for them. Because that is what opens your mind and the possibilities for you, versus focusing on, you know, all the negative things that are going on in the world, and then kind of stepping into a smaller and smaller world with the false belief that you're somehow protecting yourself from any of the bad. stepping back and getting smaller doesn't protect you. It actually just makes your world smaller and closes your mind and your imagination to all of the opportunities that are out there that everybody has access to. Okay, so that's kind of the damage that comes with being the negative person. But now, of course, if you are trying to kind of resist that and fight against that to keep your own vibe high, but you're with somebody who's that way, it can become very draining, because as you're trying to create this life you love, but the person you want to create it with is going the opposite direction, it can be very difficult to maintain your own vibe. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of the mistakes, the big mistakes that I see women make when they're with a partner who behaves this way. So one of the main things that I see women do is, number one, they'll try to talk to their partner about why things aren't so bad. So this is like, so if someone were to say, again, complain about their commute or something. Oh, my traffic was terrible and I have this 2-hour commute and it's just the worst. And then, if that's your husband or your wife doing that, and your response is something like, oh, you don't like your commute? Have you tried listening to podcasts? I'd love to have 2 hours to myself, kind of thing. So that's a mistake that women often make with their partner, is they basically try to talk their partner into seeing why things aren't so bad. Basically, you're trying to get them to see all of the good that you're seeing that they don't see. But of course, if this is you, it doesn't work. So I have never in my life seen this happen and seen the negative person say, oh, you're right. That's a great idea, honey. Maybe I will listen to a podcast. No, they don't feel that way, because instead what they've just felt is they just felt like they're very invalidated. So when you try to talk them out of their negativity and their grumpiness, what you're doing from their perspective is invalidating what they've just tried to share with you. And the truth is, it's your discomfort that's actually coming out. So, I had a client, for example, who had a husband who was really, really negative, and it's just driving her crazy. This was months ago. But when we actually dove into the reason that it was driving her crazy, it was really about her feeling responsible for how her partner felt all the time. So, if he's complaining about the kids, she would take it to heart and then she would try to fix the situation. If he was grumpy about work, she took it to heart and then tried to kind of sing and dance when he got home and try to talk him into being happy. But the truth is, it isn't up to you to make your partner happy. So the actual work that she had to do was about her letting go of feeling responsible for his emotions all the time. So she had to get to a place of not only not feeling responsible for how he felt, but not letting how he felt dictate how she felt. Actually, I was just talking to a client a couple nights ago, and she was talking to me about her daughter who, had been out skating or something like that with a friend, and the friend had fallen or, was being grumpy, but then apologized to her daughter and said, oh, I'm really sorry that I'm grumpy. And her daughter's response is, oh, that's okay. I don't let how you feel affect my time. Which, she was kind of like, oh, that's so much smarter. And it's true. And women and people in general who have that power, and that is the superpower, that if you can develop the superpower to not let how other people feel dictate how you feel, when you can step into that, that is the most powerful place that you can live. So it's not about not caring how somebody else feels. It's about not taking responsibility for it and not taking it on as though it now changes how you feel. Okay, so and you've seen this, I'm sure, anyone who deals with it, you've seen it many times in your relationship where you might be, you know, driving home from work and you're listening to your own podcast, or you're listening to music, or having a great conversation with a friend. And then you walk in the house and you're in a great mood, and your partner is there and they're grumpy, or, they snap at you right away, or you can just tell they're off. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, right. And you can almost sense and feel your energy just go from up here to just whoosh. When you can develop the skills to stop that, when you can develop the skills to remain in the place you want to remain, emotionally, energetically, vibrationally, the world is your oyster, because then you continue to move forward with your day, your week, in the rest of your life, with that power. And so then what you attract to you changes. And the other beautiful thing about doing this work and diving into what you are and are not responsible for is you will also start to see a huge change in your partner. So this is the piece that a lot of women aren't always aware of. And that is that how you are responding to your partner when they're in this negative place has a huge impact over time of how they then show up for you, or show up when they're feeling negative. So if you see a lot of times in relationships where people bond over negativity. You see it in mother-daughter relationships, you see it in friendships, and you certainly see it in marriages. So if there has been a time in your life where every time somebody, or every time your partner complains to you about something, or talks about somebody else, that you don't dive right in with them and start saying, yeah, I know, I saw them say that was awful. And you kind of get on the gossip train, or get on talking about why this person's, not doing the right thing with their money or whatever. You've developed some bonds over being really negative. So moving forward, as you have grown up and maybe decided, I don't want to talk about other people, I don't want to be super negative all the time, then it takes a while for some of that those bonding type conversations to become a thing of the past. But it just takes one person to not dive into those conversations to start to see that shift. And the other thing is that if your partner gets a lot of attention and sort of comfort every time they're negative, and this often happens right from the time, someone's a child, where a child will learn that the best way to get my mother's attention, for example, is to be crying or complaining about something. Otherwise, she ignores me. The same thing often goes through into marriages, where people will learn that, and women do the same thing, it's not just men, where it's like, if you get upset or if you're feeling grumpy, you're going to get a different version of your partner than what you'll have if you're just, your normal happy self. And so watch that and witness it in your relationship, and start to see, what is your partner's payoff for being grumpy? Because sometimes, even if it's that you try to give him more positive attention, that's a payoff. But for a lot of people, even a lot of negative attention is a payoff. I've had many, many clients who have told me, the only time my husband listens to me is if I yell at him, right? And I see this in marriages all the time, where some people have learned over time that this is the only way to get the attention that they need, is to yell or be grumpy or, complain about things. So you really have to notice in your relationship what the payoff is for the negative person, and then be cognizant of removing that payoff. So it's not about not validating them. It's not about not having some compassion. But if it becomes a control thing, where it's a way for them to control your emotions, that might be the payoff. But we need to figure that out. And this is obviously the work that I do with my clients, is helping you to figure out what's really going on here, and then how can we shift that. Now, another thing, there was one other one that, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is another mistake that I often see women make is always putting on a happy face. No matter what. So the one mistake that I just mentioned was around trying to talk your partner into why things aren't so bad. But the other thing is this idea of not even acknowledging their grumpiness or not even acknowledging their complaint, but just kind of putting on a happy face at all times. And many of you probably saw this or experienced this over Christmas. Certainly, I've heard from a lot of women this week who have who experienced that, where their partner was grumpy or being negative at inappropriate times, and of course, as the woman in the house, they're trying to make Christmas magic. And so what that often looks like is somebody complains or somebody is mad about something, and you immediately kind of rush to fix it for everybody, and kind of act like, oh, it's okay, don't worry, and that is another mistake, because what that shows again is this desire to take responsibility for not only how your partner feels, but how everybody in the room feels. Okay, years ago I read the book Learned Optimism by I think it's Martin Seligman. And it's a great book, Learned Optimism. But what was really interesting about the book was, and I use this example all the time, was that there's a test in the book that you can do that determines your level of optimism. And I felt like, well, I'm a very positive person, so I'm going to do really well on this test. And so I take this test, and sure enough, it gave me this really, really, really high score for optimism. And so I thought, oh, yay, see, I'm so great. What a great student I am around optimism. Until I flipped the page and discovered that that level of optimism was actually toxic. And the reason that that's toxic is because what it showed about me was, or that version of me, was that I was so optimistic that I had an unrealistic sense or expectation around how I could impact others or how I could influence others in the room just by being happy. Okay, so it's about, and I see this in women all the time. When you're taking responsibility for everybody, you're draining yourself. And the truth is, if you have children or parents or in-laws or whatever, and if your husband or partner acts like an idiot or acts like a jerk in front of them, it's not up to you to protect everybody in the room from the way that that person behaves. And that's what you often see when women are always trying to just put on a happy face and quickly fix it, quickly sweep this under the rug, is they're trying to protect everybody else from this person, and they're trying to protect this person from themselves. The truth is, it's just draining that woman, and it's not helping the person who you're kind of covering up for, because what you're doing is really enabling their bad behavior. Instead of them having to face the consequences regularly of their behavior gets swept under the rug. And so when that's gone on in your relationship for months or years, the truth is you've actually removed a lot of opportunities for that person to face their own embarrassment, to face the consequences in their other relationships around what's happening. And it actually can set them down a worse path because they've just been enabled the entire time. So again, any form of enabling always feels like it's coming from a place of love and kindness. The truth is it's coming from a place of discomfort, of a desire to control things, and from an overinflated sense of responsibility for other people. Relationships are spiritual assignments. They are here to reflect back to you those pieces of yourself that you have an opportunity to become aware of and grow, and in doing so, elevate your consciousness and elevate your life. So the best way to deal with some of this stuff truly is to learn how to call on your own guidance system to help you. So it's tuning in to that part of you that is always trying to take you in the right direction. But when you're over here trying to control everything or trying to fix things, whether it's out of love or resistance to the negativity or whatever, that resistance, first of all, is just going to cause that negativity to persist. What you resist is always going to persist. Versus when you see the person for what they're going through, have some compassion, don't resist it. You can feel it no longer become a you thing, okay? It's your partner who really needs to work on that stuff. And it's not up to you to tell them that. It's not up to you to fix them. It's up to you to figure your own stuff out so that it doesn't impact you in the same way. And to do that, the only way I know how is to tune in to that guidance system of yours that's always trying to help you move forward in a much happier, more peaceful, more loving way that works for you and takes you to your highest good. So one of the things when I was doing my training with Marianne Williamson around like my Miracle Minded coaching training, one of the things that Marianne taught me that I, have never forgotten and have used over and over and over again and has never failed me is to obviously pray for myself. And so that's something that, if you really want to dive into some of your own stuff and figure this stuff out, you can't do it on your own. You need that spiritual guidance to come in and to help lead you. And of course, I'm always here. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do, is to help you tune into that guidance. But if you're not interested in working with me and you want to do that on your own and try stuff like that on your own, what I would say is to, daily pray for your own guidance, but to also add in a prayer for the guidance of your partner. Okay. And that has never failed me, never. And it's something that I always laugh and I'll say, geez, I wish someone would have tried to tell me that. Of course, people tried to tell me that my entire life and I didn't listen. But as soon as you start to listen to that, as soon as not only to your guidance, but to somebody who says, pray about it for yourself. Just call on your own guidance system. Literally, eyes closed. You don't have to be down on your knees to pray. You just give yourself a minute, take a breath, close your eyes and just ask for some guidance. And it's not going to be some stroke of lightning and or, some voice in your head. It's a sense of peace. And that sense of peace opens you up to a different approach and new ideas. So that's step one. And then step two is calling on guidance for your partner. So if you're in this place where you're feeling like, oh my gosh, nothing works, I've tried everything and nothing works, well, pray about it. And it might seem like a desperate plea, but anybody I know who starts to understand the way the universe works and starts to understand what it's like when you can tap into that power, and it's a power that's within you. It's not out there. It's right within you. You've just been ignoring it for a really long time. When you can tap into that, you will see changes happen much faster than you can ever imagine. If you've been struggling in your relationship, if you feel like you've lost yourself and you'd like to figure things out and really step into the happiness and prosperity that the universe wants for you, click the link below, join our community over in the Facebook group, Relationship Answers for Women. There's also a link to download my best-selling book, When Marriage Needs a Miracle, absolutely free. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for being here.